Good evening, Canby, and welcome to the Canby Urban Renewal Agency special meeting of November 12th, 2014. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And a moment of silence for our uniformed troops and first responders. Thank you. Please be seated. Next up, we have community announcements. Do we have anything, Rick, that you know of?
Not that I have.
Not that you have? All righty. Very good. And in your Mr. Mayor role, would you mind sharing, and Commissioner Parker, with our meeting we had this afternoon?
Sure.
Upcoming event. How's that for impromptu?
No, I love impromptu. I can
Just like Toastmasters.
really quickly on my feet, and I will avoid the ums because I know that
She's
Council is counting. So this afternoon, myself and a number of the members of the, you can't count the first one.
We were all here.
The, I think the entire council was there this afternoon for a meeting. We met with a couple of business owners as well as members of city staff to talk about putting together a street dance party. So kind of taking the Kiss Summer Goodbye party and dance and moving that towards tagging it on to Canby's Big Weekend. So we're going to use that, hopefully, I think, as our date to launch Canby's Big Weekend with hopefully some live music and other vendors, and hopefully turn it into a growing community event. And a number of us had visited a similar event in West Lynn, and I think a number went down to Silverton to see some of their activities as well. And so we're hopefully going to duplicate that here and make it just a huge success for downtown. Anything you want to add there?
Nope, I think that does it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you.
All righty.
For that spotlight.
On the spot.
Yeah.
On the spot.
Any citizen input for non-agenda items tonight? See no one? All right. Next up, we have the consent agenda. Do we have any additions or corrections to the November 5th, 2014 URA special meeting?
None.
Seeing none, a motion?
I move to accept the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the November 5th, 2014 URA special meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Vice Chair Hodson and seconded by Commissioner Hensley to approve the consent agenda, which includes approval of the minutes of the November 5th, 2014 URA special meeting. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries 7-0. Next up on resolutions and ordinances, we have URR 14-009, authorizing a personal services agreement with Lenore LLC to provide construction management services for the new civic building project. And with that, we'll turn it over to our new URA director.
Thank you. As you are all aware, we have been embarking down a path to select a construction manager, which is the first of several steps over the next several months to put together a project team. The request for proposals for construction management services for the library and civic building was issued 6 or 8 weeks ago, and we received 5 responses. The responses were evaluated by a committee composed of the people on the screen: Tim Dale, Todd Rocha, Roger Reif, Melissa Kelly, Amanda Zeiber, and myself. The interview process and the response review process was really very interesting, and it underscored the differences in the proposers and the differences in the proposals. And those differences, as I will share with you in the next few minutes, are fairly substantial, and yet, in my opinion, still leads to what I believe is a solid recommendation for the selection of construction manager to support the efforts of this construction project. The selection process is as follows. 5 firms responded to the RFP that was sent out. When those responses were returned, we asked committee members to evaluate those responses based on certain specific criteria: the pertinent experience of the firm, the commitment of specified personnel that would be committed for the duration of the project, and that was very relevant to us. We wanted to make sure that when we engaged a firm, we were going to be working with the same person from start to finish. Understanding of the city's needs, proposed staffing, and services devoted to the project, again, very important in our overall analysis, and the cost of the proposer's services. Committee met on October 23rd, and after discussions and review of the 5 proposals that we had received, we narrowed the list of firms to be interviewed to 3. 3 firms that were interviewed on October 30th were Francis C. Berg, Lenore LLC, and Shields Oblets Johnson Incorporated. The selection process required that we conducted oral interviews, and the oral interview questions focused really on determining if the proposer had the knowledge and the ability to meet the agency's construction management requirements. Specifically, we were looking to the firm principal's involvement in the project. As I indicated earlier, it was really critical to the project that we identify an individual that was going to be assigned to the project, that individual stay with the project from beginning to end. The proposer's perceived role of the construction manager, how each of these firms saw themselves in relation to the project, in relation to the interaction that had to occur between the agency, the construction manager, the architect, and the contractor. So kind of a holistic approach. The thoughts on the process that should be followed for hiring architect and contractor and developing the final construction team. And we asked them what they thought the biggest challenge the city was facing, and frankly, the answer is budget. And it's not a surprise, I don't think, for any of us that that's going to be a big challenge. And we asked for the firm's specific knowledge about library design and construction, any experience that they'd have that would be relevant in our embarking on this project, any internal processes that they have in place that they felt would add additional safeguards to the owners, how they would propose to handle requests for information, submittals, change orders, and other flows of information that occurred between the owner and the trades, the architect and the contractor. And any cost management strategies that they felt would be relevant in administering this program. The interview panel reconvened on November 3rd to continue our discussions. We hadn't made a final recommendation at the end of our end of our October 30th meeting. The panel consensus was that the 2 strongest proposals were Lenore and Shields Oblets Johnson, and I will refer to them from now on as SOJ. But I will tell you the panel vote was split evenly between the 2 firms, with each firm receiving 3 votes. So we kind of broke down the evaluation process so we could focus on some of the specific requirements or criteria or elements that we felt would be important to the overall success of the project and the overall success of the agency as we move forward with the process. First is the ability of the principal assigned to the project to successfully serve as a construction manager and directly support the owner and effectively represent the owner in matters relating to the project. How was this person going to be able to interact with the architect and the contractor? Did we feel that they'd be able to develop the kind of relationship with the representations that they would be making to those other 2 professional organizations be consistent with what we would expect? So that's what we looked at. How did these firms score in this particular area. Both Lenore and SOJ presented principals who are technically proficient and capable of effectively representing the owner. Pricing. The price of the Lenore proposal was $136,040. The price of SOJ was $199,590. In some situations, this wouldn't be as big a deal as it is in this project. We have right now about a $6 million, just under $6 million in the construction portion of the budget, which is, as our construction managers have already indicated, which is going to be a big challenge for the project. And so that meant that the $63,550 difference between the two proposals was pretty material in our analysis of the two proposers. The issue of pricing is becoming more critical to this project as construction costs, including both materials costs and labor costs, continue to increase in response to a more robust construction industry. More people are building now, and so there's more demand. With more demand comes reduced supply, and with reduced supply comes increased costs. And then again, with a very tight construction budget of around $6 million, the opportunity for the project to save $63,000 and change is very material in the decision-making process. The experience and depth of support staff. Overall, the strength of each firm differed to a fairly substantial degree. SOJ demonstrated a significantly greater depth within its firm than did Lenore. Their large firm, they have additional resources that they could draw from. So in an exigent situation, a situation where something of substance happened and additional action needed to be taken, resources thrown at the project, SOJ could certainly step up and deliver those resources more effectively than could Lenore. And it was a factor that we needed to recognize and consider in our deliberations. We looked at the relevant recent library project experience and the work of each firm on relevant projects with emphasis on library projects. And I will say that the principals of both companies had fairly substantial experience working in library systems and with libraries. However, Lenore's was dated a little bit more than was SOJ's. So I have to give a little bit more weight to SOJ and their proposal relative to recent library projects. When I reached this stage and looking at the critical issues, I stepped back a little bit and kind of had a conversation with myself, which I characterize as my subjective discussion. And what I feel and what I'm relating to you is that the principals assigned to the project by each firm are highly skilled, and the interview panel was split pretty evenly between the two firms relative to the skills of the principals. And that was a very important element and will become more important as I continue. It's my opinion that SOJ has a significant edge in terms of its overall firm strength and depth. I believe the overall risk factor is incrementally higher with Lenore than with SOJ because Lenore lacks the organizational depth offered by SOJ, and I needed to point that out to you. There is a mitigating factor, however, and that is that city staff could be called upon and I believe could successfully perform to act in a more active capacity on the project if necessary. We could put more time into the project if we found any deficiency in any of those areas. But even with the incremental increased risk, the reward of adding $63,000 back into the project budget is, in my view, very persuasive. The review panel voted, and in the vote, each firm received 3 votes. Lenore, Dale Robinson Rocha supported the Lenore proposal. The SOJ proposal was supported by Kelly, Reif, and Zyberg. I have committed to you that I will always present to you a recommendation, and that's what I have done in this instance as well. And my recommendation to you is based on all the factors that I've outlined to you, that you select Lenore LLC to provide construction management services for the construction of the Canby Library Civic Center project. And just touching on a summary of the rationale behind that recommendation, the principal assigned to the project by each firm is clearly capable of doing a professional job as a construction manager, and the value of the contract savings generated by selecting Lenore outweighs the benefits of the deeper and more experienced support staff offered by SOJ. And that completes my report.
Rick, can you remind us, the $63,500 is it roughly 10% of the contingency?
Yeah, it's
the project.
approximately, if we run a 10% contingency on the construction budget of $6 million, 60,000, that's 600,000, 60,000 is just over 10%. Some contingencies will drop to as low as 7%, 6 or 7% on a project, depending on how tight the budget is. And so it could actually have a greater impact than that, but the good number to use and the safe number to use is 10%.
Okay. And can you refresh us a little bit on the role of a construction manager as it relates to design experience versus that of the architect selection?
Well, the architect is the designer. The construction manager is kind of the facilitator and the facilitator between the owner and the trades as we go forward, meaning they would have an active role in the development of an RFQ and issuance of an RFQ for architectural services. They don't necessarily, and in fact frequently, aren't themselves architects or contractors, but they have an understanding of the trades, how the interrelationship should work, and they act as intermediary during the design phase of the project. They coordinate as they see cost implications in a design. They'll coordinate with the architect and the owner to identify potential cost savings, alternatives, options that could be available. They're kind of a clearinghouse for information in the early stages. In the later stages of the project, as we move into advanced design, have a contractor on board, then they also act as liaison to the contractor as well. So they have to have a clear understanding of how the flow of information occurs between the architect and contractor, and between the owner, architect, and contractor. They're kind of the conduit through which information flows. If they see something wrong, it's their responsibility to bring it to the owner's attention.
Very good. Agency, feel free to ask questions of Rick.
I have a question, Rick. Does the committee select through a similar process the architect, or does the construction manager do that?
Now, the committee would also select the architect. The construction manager would have an active role in the process. We bring them on board early because they will have input into the process and will assist us in our own deliberations, looking for strengths and weaknesses. And a good construction manager will play an active role, but will not be the decision maker.
And then if I could ask one more question, kind of going back to the two finalists, and maybe I'll have Todd answer this with Rick. Could you give us an example of where Lenore might run into a situation where they don't have maybe as big a toolbox as SOJ, and how they would ultimately have to find a tool to fix whatever's wrong?
You know, under the normal course of business with a project of this nature, this isn't a massive project. I don't really expect that to happen. Lenore has brought a two-person team into into the organization. The other individual doesn't have the technical skills that the principal does. However, they do have some skills, and they'll be secondary. The principal is the key to the success of this project, and he's highly skilled. But under general conditions and general circumstances and an expected outcome, I wouldn't anticipate a problem. The example that we used in our discussion is, what if the principal got in an auto accident and
Let's not do that.
couldn't fulfill the duties of the principal? What would you do then, because you don't have the depth of the firm? The answer is, there depends on where in the course of the project you are, number one, and secondly, in the worst-case scenario, you still have the opportunity to go back out, identify an alternative to come in and fill for the balance of the construction management contract. That opportunity still exists. So you're not isolating yourself by making this decision. You're just limiting your. We were looking at, okay, in the worst-case scenario, what could happen here with a small firm like this versus a larger firm. In the worst-case scenario is something could happen to the principal, and you'd have to backfill for that. We actually have some ability in-house to be pretty successful there. So I'm not overly, very honestly, I'm not overly concerned. But it is a consideration, and it's relevant in the decision process, although that's the risk analysis that I discussed. That's specifically the risk, but I think that the exposure is fairly minimal in relation to the benefit of saving the $63,000.
Thank you.
With their management experience, apparently they have managed some projects that were much more extensive than what we're building, that are much more expensive, and they've handled those without any problem.
Yeah, both firms have, and the firm that I'm the principal in the firm. Now, Lenore LLC is a newly created limited liability corporation. However, the principal creating it is a highly skilled professional who has a great deal of construction management experience. I'm very comfortable with the tools that he brings to the project.
Could you give us some projects that Lenore's completed?
Well, Lenore hasn't completed,
Well, I mean,
but the principal.
managed?
Yeah, I can give you some projects that I just happened to bring that with me.
Good Girl Scout always comes prepared.
Gresham Barlow School District, $45 million, 2,000 bond program. McMinnville School District, City of Vancouver, $74 million. Hilton Convention Center, City of Salem, Oregon, $11 million. Transit Center Bus Facility, and when you deal with these larger projects, you have multiple construction management agents working in different areas. So one may be managing specifically submittals, and another one might be managing the process of cost containment. And I can't give you that breakdown specifically. I can go into more detail.
Or will they be overseeing every aspect on this one here?
Yes, they will.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a small project in relation to what they're
Right,
used to.
right.
We have letters of reference from, for the principal, Ken Andrews, who's the principal of Lenore LLC, from Salem Keyser Transit, from the Center for Advanced Learning, from McMinnville School District, and from a reference from BLRB Architects as well. So Gresham Barlow School District, and these are specific letters of recommendation for the principal of the firm.
Did they do the city hall in Happy Valley? Was that the
You know, I
building?
don't remember.
It was in the early phase of it.
Oh, okay.
Did they? So they have, the principal has extensive experience while he was working in another firm, and he's created this to do the work.
Oh, okay.
Can I ask another question? Would you expect the architect to stay on the project from beginning to the very end too? There wouldn't just be...
Now, one architect, we'll have one construction manager, one architect, and one contractor.
All
if the-
working closely
If the
together.
project works properly. If we have more than one of any of those, then
That's not
we'll
what we want.
regroup and figure out. But this project will go forward, and it'll go forward smoothly, even if we have to swap somebody out. Which I'm not anticipating.
Any other questions or discussion?
Are we ready for?
I'm ready for a motion.
Well, then, Mr. Chair, I propose that we adopt Resolution URR 14-009, authorizing a personal services agreement with Lenore LLC to provide construction management services for the new Civic Center, Civic Building project. Pardon me.
And I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
It's been moved by Commissioner Hensley, seconded by Commissioner Parker. For URR 14-009, authorizing a personal services agreement with Lenore LLC to provide construction management services for the new civic building project. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carry 7-0. Thank you very much, Rick, and thank you to the selection committee. Some are here tonight, and looking forward to selecting the architect. It's getting exciting. Yes, Commissioner.
If I can, Rick, this is one of the first full presentations I've heard you make, and I enjoy the succinctness and the balance, so more, please.
That's good. Yeah. Thank you very much. That was a very good characterization, I think, of the process that we went through, and very balanced. Mr. Director, do we have any other items tonight that we need to cover? None? Agency, any further items?
I have one question, kind of a side note. When would you expect the dismantling of the little houses?
You know,
Rick, do you want to comment on that? The demo?
We want to get the construction manager on board first so that everything will be under their contract. So as soon as he gets on board, we'll probably move forward with that further.
Wise choice.
Be a first Friday burn.
I was saying, are we using them for training?
We've been trying to tempt the chief a little
Okay,
bit.
good.
First Friday.
Great.
Little bonfire action.
We'll bring the marshmallows.
Yeah.
Really excited to put a future site up.
Yes.
And,
See that?
on the board, on a sign.
It would be better than the no trespassing signs on the houses. It would be much more welcoming. Yes.
It'll be great. All right, agency, any other items for tonight?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, wait, Mr. Chair,
Oh.
I have one.
I want to move this thing along. Architect, how long until we can go off RFP for the architect?
We're going out as soon as we get them on board.
It'd be nice to be able to have the RFPs from the architects in before Christmas, so we can be looking those over the holiday and then have the interviews right after
We
January.
can probably get that out.
Because they only need really a week. We give them 2 or 3 is plenty.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
Very good,
I
Tom.
want to move this thing along.
Yeah, it's our intention to have an architect under contract by the end of January.
Excellent.
Very good.
Okay.
Keep her moving.
Thank you.
All right. With that, a motion?
Make a motion that we adjourn?
I'll second it.
All righty. It's been moved by Commissioner Ryder, seconded by Commissioner Hensley, that we adjourn. It's not a debatable motion. It isn't, it really isn't. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank
We
you.
are adjourned. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Selection Committee. Good night, Candy.
Crickets on